G'day guys, got a brand new enough brand new, looks like it, doesn't it? I think it's been used. It's GPX-5000. It's come in. I've just got the sticker there because it's got the name on it. It's also got the name around there as well. So I just put the sticker there so we don't advertise whose detector it is. But I'm going to show you that I'm going to do a comparison. I wish I had a standard 45 at the moment. I don't, but I've got a standard 4000s come in. So I'm going to show you something in normal timings, how different these detectors are. And I've actually put in a lot more hard yards doing some R&D, research and development on the fives. Now, you know that I like the 45 more than the 5. The 5 in standard form, even though it has reduced gain than the early model 4500, the one with the 7-digit serial number, or the one starting with B100 serial number, if they're the big long 13 digits, they're the ones with the low gain, be it a 5000 or a 4500. Now, I might as well tell you this as well. Minelab have re-released the 4500. These are brand new 4500 detectors. But the thing is, I don't know if they are the low gain version or the high gain version. As in, are they just a 5000 board put into the detector without the 5000 modes, which the later ones seem to be, or are they the very early 4500s that had the higher gain, that went deeper on big targets? So, like I said, I'm going to show you this. I think I haven't even fired up this 4000. We're going to find out. But we're going to see a 5000 stock standard on normal mode. We'll see how good we get a target on the coil up there, on the double D coil. So first of all, what I'll do, I've got the camera around this way, so I'm sticking in my leg. What's that? Oh, that's nothing. Wires hanging down. Okay, let's turn it on, and I'll put it in factory default. All settings. Now what I'll do, you will listen to it. I'll just turn the audio up on this thing here. It is up. There you go. You can probably hear it now. I've got the microphone pretty close to the speaker there. If you can't hear it, well, there we go. Put it a bit closer. I don't want to get it too close. Okay, what do we got? We got it in fixed, cancel. We have it in normal timings. And we have it, I'll throw it into deep. There you go. Might be able to hear a lower tone a little bit better, maybe, don't know. So it's in deep. And we'll give it a frequency scan as well, just for the hell of it. So it'll sit there and go through its 255 steps. Yeah, so the problem with, well, I better start it off properly. The issue, the problem, the reality, the reality of the 5000 is, which really is a real issue, and they could have done this, in my opinion, they could have done this in software, but the gain was reduced in the 5000s because of the fine gold mode. If you try and clock these up or try and oomph them up enough, the detector basically falls over. It starts getting some of the flyback remnants into the receiver, and it just desensitizes. So the thing is, the early 4500s did not do that. Those things will run at a lot higher gain than what these will. The front end gain on these is 34, and the old 4500s is 48. So you can work that out yourself mathematically. That is the gain difference, the multiplication factor. So anyway, has it done its frequency scan? No, it's there, so you can hear it. Still damn noisy anyway, right? If you can hear that. Okay, I'll just lift this up and we'll have a look at up there. We'll hit it with 0.05. We'll see how we get it in normal mode. I have to scrape the coil. No joke. That is up there. There's nothing there. I come down. I'm scraping that on the coil. That is just woeful, right? See, the thing is, normal mode for big targets, but the overall sensitivity for any gold that's small, you're going to walk over it, right? It is a real pain overall. The thing is, if you want to get that, we'll flick this into special fine gold. It will now get that, okay? But the thing is, with special fine gold, you're going to have a big depth loss on big targets. It's like you can't have everything. So anyway, we'll go over it. Still not very good, but it's a lot better than what it was. See, if I scrape the coil now, it should be a big signal. But up at that height there, nothing. So it's pretty woeful. Now what I'll do, we'll kill this. This has come in for mods and stuff, so I've got to port the pieces. But it's a name, it's a name on there. But the factory seal is still sealed. It hasn't been done anything. Even though I can take it off and put it back on, I haven't done it with this. So that goes in here, and just so he who owns it, that's your detector. You wrote all that out, so I'm well aware of what's going on. Put that in the box. Now I'll get this 4,000. Okay, I wish I had a 4,500. I've only got my own. They're all modified. It's not a fair test. So where are you? Okay. They've got names on it both sides as well. So yeah, names and stuff. So what I'll do, I'll peel that off. I'll stick that there. Oh, come on. I'll stick that over that, and just be safe, I just put a couple of blank post-it notes over the details. We'll call this detector Baz's detector, with no last names and stuff. So there you go. Okay, let's have a look at a 4,000. Now 4,000 has the same gain as the old 4,500, and same as the old GP series. So let's just, it's got the dreaded, guys, if you have this button on your detectors, that Look, they might have fixed it. These things fail or failed straight out the factory at one point. They just failed. So anyway, what we'll do, we'll just put this I'll just check the front thing on this. Okay, we'll stick it in cancel, put it in fixed, we'll put it in normal, and it's in deep, and away we go. So let's push the button. It's way down in volume, but I'll turn the threshold up. But maybe it'll come up when I reset it all. These things do not have a backlit screen. Pain in the proverbial. But anyway, there. She's all reset. Factory default. I would have thought deep mode would have had a lower tone than that. It doesn't on this. But like I say, I haven't fiddled around with all the settings on these detectors for yonks, but we're going to reset this one anyway. We're going to like reset it all, let it do a frequency scan, and we'll see how quiet it is. So yeah, there we go. You can have a talking head as well. But turn the threshold up a little bit, let it go for its scan. Can you? Yes, you can. You can. You can actually put a backlit display in this if you really, really wanted to. It's a pain. It's a big job. It's not really worth it, but you can do it. Okay, we've hit. It's as quiet as it gets. So this is a 4,000 detector, 0.05. Now just remember, the 5,000 has lower gain. This one has higher gain, just like the early 4500s. And you got to understand this, guys. There are early 4500s that have a higher gain. The next series, which is, first of all, you got the seven digit serial numbers, high gain. B100 serial number, high gain. 13 digit serial number, low gain. So that's what I'm saying about this. The reissue of the 4500 from Minelab, which all the stores rang me up to tell me about it, believe it or not. Hey, we got 4500s. So yeah, if you want a brand new one, they'll cheapish. I bet it's $3.5 or something, I think. So that's all right at that price. But then again, I don't know what version it is. Anyway, let's see. 0.05. Notice I don't have to scrape the coil to get a signal. Yeah, somewhere around about there. It's basically on par with using the 5,000 in fine gold mode. So there is advantages to have more gain, but having more gain also introduces more noise, like EMI and all sorts of dreaded stuff like that. So that would be operating very similar to a 4500, but you know, on bigger gold, on big coils, these things will exceed. They just have more gain. You're not like, I'll turn it off, but you know, you're not going to. I don't want to say the wrong thing, as in, you know, making people feel, you know, a bit silly or something. I don't know. I'm going to be diplomatic. Okay. There are people who get the later detectors. I'm not talking the 6,000, 7,000 or whatever, but the reissues, the other 45s and 5s, and what they do is they put a big coil on it and they run the detector in normal mode, and the nature of the beast, with normal mode, you may get hot ground noises. You may also have reactive clays and stuff like that, and pockets of minerals, and the dreaded burnt charcoal tree roots under the ground that sound off. And the thing is, people don't like that, and they go, "Oh God, what are we going to do about that?" Well, what they do, they put a big coil on, like a big 20-inch coil, and they put the detector into either enhance or on a 5,000 fine gold, and run round with that, and they'll say, "Oh, it's quiet. It's not picking up a lot of hot rocks and various things like that." Great. But they don't realise you've lost a lot of ability to pick up big, deep nuggets. So imagine you're walking around, you've got it in one of these small gold modes, and especially people who use enhance, you lose 30% of your depth on big targets. I can tell you that now. But it has got a thing called normal mode. Normal is deep, and people just don't realise it, or do they realise it and don't care? But I will tell you right now, and I know this for a fact, there is many a detector that has gone over the ground with a big coil on it, or reasonable coil. We'll say, anything 14, 16, 18, 20, whatever, and have walked over multi-ounce nuggets because they just didn't use the right mode to find them. They will run round and say, "Well, there's no gold left because we're not finding anything." Well, everyone else has done the same. They've all run around using enhanced modes and small gold modes, and they've relatively used small coils, and they've basically picked all the fly specks from the surface, and a little bit deeper, of course. And by doing so, there's all this. So we've got new technology, but the technology is not used as it should be to get the big nuggets deep. I mean, there's been lots of publications on this, and people just don't do it. They just go, "Well, it's sort of like you're going to buy a manual car or an automatic. If it's the same price, you're going to get the automatic." In most people would. I know a lot of four-wheel drivers won't, but most people will. Same with the detector. You want it to be nice and quiet and an easy cruisy drive. You'll flick it into one of these modes that doesn't amplify a lot of. There we go. It doesn't amplify a lot of extraneous noises. Just ground noises, whatever. But if you detect long enough, you'll be able to get an ear for it. You get an ear for the attack rate, decay rate when you come off the target. And I know guys out there who've been doing the same detector for years and years and years, and they hear something and they go, "Oh, that's clay. That's reactive charcoal." 90% of the time they're right, but sometimes they're not. But most of the time they are. But imagine, swinging a detector that has capability for getting big gold deep, and you just walk over it. You don't even know it's there. Oh, God. It happens. That's why there's a lot of big, deep gold left. A lot of we'll call it the easy big gold, definitely was found with detectors such as the SD2000. There were people out there who'd ground balance it and just go and flick it into channel 2 and didn't worry about the deep gold detection modes. which is crazy. But most people operated in both channels, so you had ample opportunity for not tiny gold, but medium, small, medium gold to big gold. Um, then again, it's great. Those detectors were great on big, deep gold as such. But there are situations where those detectors, even though they went deep, uh, ground balance was a little bit out because it was manual ground balance, stuff like that. And just because it's a relatively old design, it didn't have a lot of, really good filtering in it and stuff like that. It was a bit of a noisy pig of a thing. But 21 comes out, good detector. 22 comes out. But what everyone's probably noticed that as the detectors evolved, they sort of got a lot of switches and facilities on the detector, or even the straight design of the detector, that it was more concentrated towards more small and small gold. So tiny things. It's the marketing man's way of doing it. As long as they're finding gold, they're happy. Be it you're finding pinheads, or if you don't find any pinheads, you won't be happy. So, at the expense of finding the occasional life changing multi kilo nugget, the detectors were more or less set up to go for smaller and smaller gold. And that is exactly what's happened. Many a time I have got the 45 out with the higher gain. It's also got modifications too, that I can crank the gain right up on that. And just doing side by side tests with equivalent detectors, even the newer ones, and that. But I get targets they don't even know it's there. It's just not there. There's videos. I've got videos up. I don't want to poo-poo the newer detectors because they're good at what they're designed to do. But I had in the early days, this is going back a while. There's a video there where we had a 7000. We tried it in all modes. We went on the Talbot test site using some big squashed up Coke cans on a stick, and using the 19-inch coil, and at the 4-foot holes, it didn't even register. It wasn't there. It wasn't even a murmur. And then I put on a 20-inch Nugget Finder Advantage coil, and it just boomed. It was loud, and but it was not just the coil; it's also the detector, and it just was a booming signal. You would have stopped on it straight away. And the funny thing was, at the time, I said, I wonder how small a coil can I use on this modified 4500 and get the same level of a pull-up signal that is a target. And I ended up using a 17-inch elliptical detect coil. Now, a detect coil, what can I say? It's okay. We'll put it another way. Do you see a lot of detect coils out in the field being used? I was asked. Yeah. Do you see? Oh, See, the thing is, I've got to say it's sort of innuendo. I'm not going to go and say, so and so's coils are crap or something like that. I'm not going to do that because you just put a target on your back and you're going to get darts thrown at you from then on. So, yeah, what can I say? Usually, what you see seasoned prospectors using is probably a good choice. Being that they experiment and they talk and they do this and they do that. If you see them running around, well, in a lot of cases, I'm just not talking about newbies or anyone who's been out there for 6 months. I'm talking about guys who are been in the game for a while, and in most cases, one of the first things they do is piff the bloody coil that came with the detector as far as they can throw it, and they go and buy an aftermarket coil. Sometimes that's a good idea. Sometimes it makes no bloody difference. and sometimes it's an excellent idea. The one that gets me is all the people out there at the moment, and I'm just saying this because it's factual and it's come to my attention. People have brought me their detectors and saying these things are noisy, 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 and it happens. It really well. This is going to be great for aftermarket calls for the 6000, isn't it? But those 14, or sorry, 11s, what they call it, GPX 14 or something, whatever they are. I've got one here. I've got a 6 and it came with one, so I'll show it. That thing, right? This thing. I don't know why, right? And it's not that the coil's noisy because it's sensitive. It's just bloody noisy. It's noisy and it doesn't ground balance properly. And sorry, but it's a fact. It's a fact. You ask anybody who has one of these, and the detector progressively, using one of these, gets noisier. I had a fellow come and said, I've got 3 coils, right? 3 of them, of these. And he kept telling me, the detector's noisy, noisy, fix it for me. And, I did a lot of work inside the detector to quieten it down. It actually quietened down. But then I took it out of his coil. Bloody hell, I had this ridiculous. Then, here's your free advertising. But, I don't have a nugget finder one, so I can't tell you about it. But I stuck this on there, right? And I think I've said it a couple of times already, right? I'm not a huge fan of anyone's coils. I'm just not. But I put this on, and the noise dissipated like it was chalk and cheese. I put this on. It did sound off on tapping. It didn't change. Something changed with the other coil, and this one didn't. And I could bang it around, and it would just ground balance perfectly, and it was functional. It worked really well. But this coil is heavy. It's heavier. It's not like a game stopper, but it's heavier than the other coils. This thing here, it's light as a feather. Even with the shaft on it, it's light. Light. This is solidly built. It's hard. It is, it's stable. So yeah, coil tech, right? Trevor, I'm plugging your coils for you. So, but I'm telling the truth. It's damn better, much better. So, I could just shut up and say nothing, but I'm going to tell you guys that this is what I found. It's God's honest truth. So these, like I said, these things, I don't know what the problem is, but it might come down to, I'll get it, of course. That's the guts of one, and it's light. Like I said, I've said it in other videos. That winding in this GPX 11 core is light, and it's not just my opinion it's light. It's light. It's very light. And what can I say? It's not all copper, right? It's not all copper. It is. You can see that. It is copper plated alloy strands. It was a good idea to get the weight down. And but yeah, just even the way it was, it looks really good. Have a look at the winding on it, right? Oh, it looks to my eye, that I just say, oh, that looks perfect. That's really good. but you know, it can move around. You know, like push it. It's not. The thing is, they've done things in a good way and done things in a bad way. The windings to each other are loose, but they haven't gone and filled it up with resin and killed the bloody Q of the coil, which a lot of them do. Let's pour resin in there and make it, you know, a little bit less sensitive. let's raise the capacitance of the coil, which we don't want, and make little tiny signals disappear. But yeah, see, this is a good idea, but questionable execution. Right? I'm just being honest, right? There's some other parameters in this coil too, which I'm not going to say, right? Because it's too embarrassing to mention it. I'm not going to say it. I really can't, and it would really be a game changer if I did mention it, but I'm not going to. So stick to copper for a start. Yeah, it's yeah. Look, I don't know what happens. This is just a wild guess, but I think it is all to do with the way the copper's plated on the alloy, and it must get fractures in it or something. It just must, you know, if it's anything like aluminum. Sorry, I hate saying that word like that. Aluminium. I don't know what's correct. Just different people say that word differently. Alloy. How about melted bauxite? uh, right. Anyway, whatever it is. Yeah, you probably know yourself that if you actually get very, very fine alloy wires or anything drawn, alloy and you wiggle it around, it just breaks eventually. It's very brittle. So maybe it's the same function. With maybe what happens, it's the coil, the windings hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, and the thin plating of copper starts fracturing and breaking. You know, you can tell me if I'm wrong. Right, leave it in the comments. I'm only just saying this as a wild guess, a real wild guess, because I don't know. I'm just I'm thinking logically what would happen. So yeah, it could be something like that. But I've had something. Oh, I had something similar like this happen years and years ago, and it was in the two-way radio field. But anyway, um, it was something like that, but it was to do with it was all low frequency stuff too, but it was for radio stations. It was 10 kilowatt AM broadcast stations. Anyway, we won't go into it too much, but someone thought they were really smart by increasing the efficiency of their antenna matching network, which was quite interesting actually. I've never seen so much air gap capacitors and coils this big and all the rest of it in my life. No, I have, but yeah, this is at I used to go and do service work at what the hell was it called? 3GL, which is over in Geelong, over on the peninsula part there. I don't know if the towers are still there, but yeah, someone there was a couple of ham radio operators who used to look after the station generally, and yeah, one of the guys there thought that he'd wind up this fantastic coil and use copper plated alloys. Well, I'll tell you what, it didn't go down very well. Well, basically, it didn't go down that well. It put the radio station off the air. Yeah, and I've actually done that too. I was doing the comms lines between the studio. Oh, this is funny. I was doing the comms lines between the studio and the transmitter site, and they used to use what they call high quality telephone wire, right? A dedicated telephone pair. And it was AM radio. It had no frequency response. It wasn't hi-fi, right? And I remember I had to do something. I was trying to work out what cables were what. And I was hitting the cables with my multimeter, And I'm thinking they would have had a microwave link or something. I didn't realise it was just a twisted pair, uh, over a distance of about 5.7 kilometres it was. And it must have had a frequency response of a brick. But I remember I was poking the wires here looking for something else for the fire alarm system back to the CFA. And it had an automatic fire alarm system that had a balance line resistor relay thing back to the CFA, the Country Fire Authority. If something caught on fire there, they'd race a truck out and put it out because it was an unmanned remote station. So what actually happened, there's me, and I've got my multimeter right on diode test, and I'm there, I'm poking the wires, and I'm introducing AC hum, and voltage clicks every because the voltage because it puts out about nearly a volt because you can do diode test on it, beep beep sort of thing, and buzzing out the wires. And I could hear this noise in the background because I had a speaker, like a monitor speaker there, so you can hear the program, but it was turned way down. And every so often I'd hit these buzz, buzz, right? Clunk, clunk, tick, tick, right? And then they had a phone there, and the phone started ringing, and no one was there at the time. The old fellas had gone back to the studio, and they're going, what are you doing? I go, why? He goes, are you buzzing out the telephone wires? Are you or so? I go, yeah. He goes, that's our studio link. Stop doing it. It's putting clicks and buzz all over the signal. And I went, whoops. So they weren't too impressed about that. But things that happen. When you don't realise that they're in the dark ages still, and didn't have a proper microwave for RF link. We used to put them up on. We used to put RF links up on about 870 megahertz. I think the mobile phones wiped that off, and then we went to 2.5 gigs, and then what happened there, don't you? Wi-Fi came along and blew that away, and then we went up to 5.7 gigs, and then what happened there? It got turned into Wi-Fi, the 5G stuff and all that, whatever they call it, and then you got we went to 10 gigahertz stuff. And then what happened then? They started using microwave door openers at all the shopping centres. Right. And sometimes with the right propagation, you would get all sorts of funny signal effects because they used to use dish antennas. If anything was in the side of the dish, it would pick it up and mix it. So, I don't know what happened. I think everything went to 24 gigs. And then the police put their radars there, right? And 24 or 26, and I think it got even higher now. The kids going up the band as it gets crowded out, But there I digressed. Anyway, that's the story of the windings. Dear. Oh dear. So anyway, back onto this thing. As you see, the gain of the front end of these things, it is a gain of 48, and the 5000's a gain of 34, and the 48 kills the 34 as it should. But we're still using an older hybrid GPX type detector. That's what these are. They're sort of half and half. It's a crossover detector. Before it went from GP to GPX, it's sort of a little bit of both if you have a look at it inside. And the 4500 is a refinement again on this, so it should actually be better than this, just doing a static type of depth test with a small target. So I hope that helps people out there. Now, any of the dealers out there who dreadedly watch these videos, let me know about these new detectors, the reissue 4500. I want to find out if it is based on the early version or the later version. If it's just a 5000 without the software part of it for fine gold and that, well, still low gain. Because there is a big, I'll tell you right now, you might as well notice, I've had communication from everywhere, from Iran, Iraq, Libya, Mauritania. Who have I left out? Oh God, people in Argentina, Chile. Yeah, also, oh yeah, whatever. There's heaps of people, and they're all after the early version 4500, the early one with the higher gain, and they're getting hard to come by. They do pop up on eBay and Marketplace occasionally, but they don't last very long. So I've had people who've been chasing. Let's put that back up again. I've had people who've been chasing the early 4500s for months, and they get it and they say, "Oh, I've got one," they're wrapped, and yeah, you can do a hell of a lot of things to them. They're really, really good detector, good overall detector. And if you're looking for big gold, you can use a early model 4500, or if you're looking for really big stuff, use an SD2000 and get the whole front end done on it, with a bit of gain boost and a bit of quietening down, and also some lower frequency modifications. The 22, it's a good detector too. That can also be made to go lower. The thing is, like I say, as the machines progress through time, even though the 7 came out and had all these massive, wonderful depth capability, I still found that with a modified standard, standard pulse type detector, I could get better depth on larger targets. Well, you just go look at the geometry of the 7000 coil, and if you look at the transmit part of it, it's not as big as it seems. It's the coil's this big, and the transmit part's this big, and it's got big ears on it. But normal mono, just absolutely sorry, but my tests have told me this with my own stuff, that a big mono kills it. But the 7000 has an advantage, doesn't it, in very reactive soils? Okay, it does. It has an advantage. It has its bipolar pulse arrangement, and that does give it an advantage in very hot soils. And saying that in many cases, it actually gets nuggets in that mid-range area a lot better than some of the other detectors by a long shot. Not that the detector doesn't hear it; it's just that the detector hears it, but it's all muddled up in everything else and doesn't discriminate it out too easy. Where the 7000 actually does. So if the 7000 actually had, pretty hard to do with the way it works, but if it had a big mono on it, it'd be a really good detector. But how do you do that? You can't do that. It won't work properly. As soon as you do anything like that, it's going to sit there and go woo woo, or like woo woo, and just swing it. Because it won't cancel out the Earth's magnetic field. It'll just add it to the swing. So how do you get around that? I don't know. But like we say, we hear there's a new detector coming out from Minelab. That's what we've heard. If it comes out, great. Is it going to be some sort of 7000-ish thing? We'll wait and see. It's funny, isn't it? I've heard so much about all these new detectors coming out from various companies, and then crickets. You don't hear anything else. Where's the new Turkish detectors? What happened to the really good Chinese one? You know what I really think that happens? I'm going to tell you this. It happens with all of them, and it's going back to the old lesson in 1978, I think it was 1978, 79, 80, somewhere around there, when Charles Garrett came over here because people told him his detectors didn't work in Australia, and I think there's a few detectors went, this is God, Bob Sargent days, believe it or not. Some people will cringe when I say that name, but yeah, some of the, yeah, I won't go into it, but there was detectors going back and forth and all sorts of modifications happening and whatever, and they just wouldn't work on our ground. And yeah, he came over and he had to come over. He flew over and said, and he basically, I suppose he said something like, or something like that. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't work very well, does it, on your ground? So yeah. Anyway, I think they cured that up, didn't they? Otherwise, they wouldn't have been using A2Bs and things. But the one who really fixed up the problem, if you want to go look at the old patents, is Bruce Candy fixed that problem by taking into account the extra um, components of Australian soil, or the stuff that's out in the goldfield, especially over in WA. And he came up with that little offset for the ground bells. If you want to go and look at it. So yeah, and that was a patent to overcome the problem. And you know, then Minelab started selling lots of detectors, and then they got a grant from the government for $8 million and sold a lot more detectors. And a lot of mine detectors, and also the technology, obviously, from the mine detectors rubbed off onto these. Keep putting that back on. Sticky notes aren't very sticky, are they? But all good fun. Anyway, it's enough waffle. I'm just showing you that's just the gain difference. Even on an older detector, the gain difference makes a bit of a difference, doesn't it? So if you can control that gain and tune your front end to the ground, and with the variable, if you want to call it variable frequency, or do you want to call it variable pulse, um, you know, widening and shortening the pulses and dead time and receiver windows and all that. That is very, very good. I don't know why no one's done that commercially, really. They just change modes, but they don't change the actual time windows, because you can then suit the detector using all the modes on the detector to the size coil that you're using for the size gold you're after, and also compensate for ground noise, EMI, and all sorts of stuff. Make it flexible, not just fixed. But I understand too. There's a lot of people out there. Well, there's a lot of people out there who just don't get their head around technology or a menu on with electronic settings. Um, the main problem is they don't. It's not that they don't understand it. Well, they don't. They just haven't taken the time to read up what each setting is. You need to read up and say and learn that does that, and and then go and get an explanation on why that does that. And just learn it. Learn it one into the other. Um, you know, A to Z or Z, depending where you are. But if you learn what it says and what it does, you'll master the detector. The newer ones, you push a button and you go blip, 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 and it ground balances, and away you go, more or less. You can't. There's not a lot you can really. Well, you can do minor settings. You can change the tone. You can incorporate some signal filtering. Is that detrimental to other signals? Who knows? You can do a lot of things, of course, but a lot of it's just, it's not deep and meaningful. It's just, fluff on the top. Whereas you really want to get in and change stuff for situation. If you want to detect the beach or something, you want bloody time windows between the transmit turn off and the receive coming in, like that big, not that big. You want within reason, of course, but some of the salt signals and that really persist for a long time, and you need them to die off. Also, if you can have variable power too on your detectors, so you could just crank the transmit power down. You crank it down to half. It's not going to make an absolute mega huge difference, even though it's like half power. It doesn't work that way. you know, if you want to compensate for that, well, then put your receiver up 3 dB, which is pretty easy to do. But then again, whatever you want to do, drop it 3 dB. 3 decibels. Sorry, I shouldn't use those words. No, no, no. I'm talking about. Some people will, some people won't. I try and keep it simple. You know, if I could use potatoes to explain it, I would. But that doesn't really work. But what I'm saying is that there are detectors out there of this breed that are very different, even though they're the same. they, they may look exactly the same. But what I did find with the 45s and the 5s and the later serial number versions, even though they're low gain, they're more noisy. They are just overly noisy, which really, really perplexes me. So it must be in software. I don't know. Like I say, there's an extra 8-volt power supply on the thing, which feeds part of the one of the op amps, quad op amp on there, and it does sort of loop in a little bit to. I think it loops into the area that does earth field cancellation. I haven't, run around for magnet. Oh, actually, I might have actually run around bouncing some magnets near it, and I said, "Oh, okay, that is part of. That's probably part of that SETA thing." But yeah, there's all sorts of things there that for some reason it's introducing more noise. I don't know exactly what it is, but it can be conquered. I'll tell you that. It can be got on top of. But that's why most of my detectors are the older 45, because you get, in my opinion, and what I found, I get more out of it. So especially for big, deep gold. And if you do have clay problems too, reactive clay, and you're looking for big, deep gold, you just lower the frequency. And by doing that, it lets a lot of the clay dissipate more energy, and it's not as loud. It sort of fades off. It might then sound like a faint target, but you get sort of a feel for it after a while. And usually too, a lot of the reactive clays, they're not deep, they're very, very shallow. As soon as you whack the pick into it, it massively disturbs it, it breaks up, it's no longer a signal. But if the signal's still there after you whack it with a pick, I'll be very seriously thinking about digging down on it. And again, if it's allowed, this is what I've done in the past too, and only for professionals, please. But when you get a target and you think, oh, is that, it's got to be loud enough. It's got to be like not borderline detectable. It's got to be loud enough. And you go, is that clay? Is that, burnt charcoal under the ground? What could it be? And listen to it, put it in a fixed, well, basically, throw it, don't put it in a fixed yet. Because the next step is throw the detector into enhanced mode, ground balance it next to the target, throw it back into fixed, and go over and listen. If there is massive diminishment of the target, right, or it disappears, it is normally, I'm going to say 90% clay or some reactive mineral type stuff. Metal, if you get it and it's got a good level on it, it's not going to drop down that you won't hear it if you throw it into enhance. So you can do that. It's a way I've done it. Stop me digging up lots of clay, time wasting signals. You want to be swinging on real ones. You don't want to be going after ground noises. So that was a trick that I've done for years. And like I say, you've got to have the initial target oofing out enough that you know that if you did reduce that by 30%, it would still be there even. Whereas, that's what's going to happen as soon as you go into enhanced mode on something at depth. If it's still there when you're in enhanced mode after you've done a ground balance on the ground near it, don't go and ground balance on it, but just listen to it and give it a good hard whack with the pick. And if it starts dissipating, it's fake and not a real target. But if it stays there, dollar signs. You might be onto something big, deep, and don't give up, guys. There's a lot of people out there. They do this. They dig down, and I'm not joking. I've seen them. They dig a 2-foot hole, and because the coil doesn't go down the hole, the signal sort of sounds the same, but maybe a little bit of an increase with PI, it doesn't make much of a difference, and they can't get the call any closer, and they get down 2 feet and they go, must be clay or something, right? False target. And they walk away, and I've actually discovered this myself. I've discovered, like, I've been doing this for a long time, right, since 1980, and the things. This is the one I used to love, right? I'll go back to VLF detectors, right? And it's to do with the way that people couldn't ground balance the bloody things, right? What you'd find this. I'm not joking. You see a hole here and a hole here, right? And they've dug down and then left it. They leave the holes open. A lot of people leave the holes open because back in the day, they didn't care, too much. They just left the holes open. And you go along, you see these 2 holes, right? And with a properly ground balanced detector, you go over it to the target in the middle, right? Because they didn't have the detector tuned properly. It would null out the target in the middle and give a signal here and a signal there as it came off that null point. Like woo and woo. Amazingly, you just dig in the middle, and many a time you find a gold nugget that they've actually just completely stuffed up the tuning of these old VLF detectors. And I'd always hunt up and look specifically for 2 dig holes, because people go, right, this is what people do. Oh, they've already dug there, all the gold's gone, they've been around. No, people who do stupid things, they just don't know. And they walk away and leave it there. There's a lot of funny things happen out in the goldfield detecting. People burying stuff. I used to hate it. People used to get they used to get the gold cigarette paper. You pull out the first bit of. Some cigarette brands had gold paper. I'm not sure who it was. And what they used to do is they get a stone and they wrap it up in the gold paper, whack the pick into the ground, drop it in the hole after widening it out a bit, and then cover it up. Now, freaking really irked me. People used to do that. And I found some real funny stuff. What did we find? The QED was here on a piece of alloy. Someone had stamped it in with a punch set. The QED was here. And all sorts of weird stuff, that people just did for a joke. So I don't know, weird. But that's how it was. In the early days, it was interesting. But even with modern technology, I've gone to places and I find a target. Maybe it's just an artifact or a relic or something, and it's like really close to the surface, and you think this area is meant to have been done over, and how could you miss that? And it was, non-ferrous, so you'd probably say, it could have been gold or something of value, and you dig it, and it would be something made of some alloy, or copper or something like that, brass, even ends of bullets and stuff, bullet shells, stuff like that. Why did no one ever dig it? You don't go along and go, oh, woo, near the surface, oh, that's junk, because a gold nugget will do that as well. If it's close to the surface and it's a decent sort of size, it's going to really ping hard. I don't know. There's a heap of ground out there that just hasn't been detected properly. That's what I'm thinking anyway. This has nearly gone on for an hour, so sorry for wasting your time. A whole hour. Hope you tuned out beforehand. Just got the info on the detectors and run away. But yeah, so that probably makes it, if I look at the clock, 6 o'clock. Yeah, so I've got to do a bit of work tonight. I've got to get a detector in tip-top shape, because it's going out, and probably be on a video. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, there's another thing about professionals and newbies. We call them newbies because they're new. Like new and like babies and new babies and newbies, because they haven't been doing it for long. And then you got the professionals. And the thing is, when you are doing detectors for these people, you've got to be so damn careful how you do it, because people who haven't been doing it long can get to a hell of a lot self-generated strife by setting things wrong. And then there's professionals out there who's always after more oomph from the detector and to have a good understanding. And if you get those two round the wrong way, you'll have complaints. So it's really handy to know who the detector is for and their level of experience and competence with the detector. Because I try to make it so it can be used easily. And we did have a detector I did that I just didn't realise that the guy had a lot of experience. So I made it so it was like, really easy to use. But in doing that, he wanted more grunt out of it. So when I got to sort of understand that he could match up coil, frequency, pulse repetition rate with back menu settings and variable frequency and that, then I said, oh, look, bring it back in, and I will give it more of a full treatment for you. So it's different levels of what you can do. I don't like doing things where people get confused and don't understand how to use it. I really, I should really do. I should go and give training lessons on all these modifications and show people in a group how you do it. But by doing that, then what happens? I'm away from doing the detectors and doing the work and doing the R&D and doing the discoveries and so forth. And it does, it takes up a bit of time. It's like an hour for a video. Oh, God, I've gone over now. But an hour for a video is not a hell of a lot of time because, it's at the end of the day usually, and I'll just, work an extra hour to get the jobs done towards the evening. I'll be in here 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and if I have to, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll still be doing stuff. So it just depends. But, if I don't tell people about things, I won't know. Not that it's my job to tell everyone, but it's probably a good thing that you do know, especially on this re-released 4500. So I think that's quite amazing. I wonder if my ranting and ravings about how good the 4500 is as a detector to do up actually caused Minelab to do a reissue of that detector. They would never admit it, I don't think, but they might. I don't know. I can't see any other reason for it. Why would you jump back a model? I don't know. You probably heard between this anyway and that 5 I did. 5's heaps noisier. It just hasn't got the gain. And this thing, even though it's an older hybrid, that's quieter. You're seeing it for what it is. We're generating a lot of EMI in here, so obviously the older models somehow handle the EMI better than the new ones. Why is that? What's the difference? I've gone for a hard look. I found a couple of differences, but nothing that I would call definitively different. There are, on all the detectors, a lot of parts I can change, and oh my God, I don't want to, really is, now I've said it, you can change a hell of a lot of parts in the detector. It's not the issue of putting the parts in. It's the issue of taking the old parts out. You've got to remember that these things, the way they're put together, is that the components are super glued to the board. And it's a real bummer because you don't want to heat everything up so hot to break the glue bond. You've got to heat up the legs to break the solder bond. And what's the hard part is if you're trying to get the chip off and it wants to sit there and bind and you're giving it a bit of a tug, what would happen if you pull too hard and the solder had re-solidified on one end and ripple the tracks off the board? You've got to be so careful. It is so time consuming to remove a batch of ICs. Say, just for instance, I want to remove 10 ICs on the board. and put two, or say 10 new ones on, not two, 10, as it won't work with only two, I took 10 off. But if I want to put 10 better, more modern components on the detector, you got to take the old ones off, takes a lot of time. Then you got to clean the board from the residues that's left there. And super glue residue can be difficult to remove, and it's all on track. You've got to be so damn careful. Solvents won't dissolve that stuff. You've got to basically heat it up and breathe in, that bloody horrible acrylamide type fume stuff from it, or vent it out, or do it outside. But it is time consuming. And then you very accurately have to clean it all up, and then you put the new chips in. The new chips, what we use, are not cheap. They're expensive and time consuming again. You've got to get them so perfectly lined up and make sure it all goes on properly. And yeah, to 10 chips, I'd say could be 5 or 6 hours in it just doing that. And you haven't even done the rest of it. So it, if you're charging like a lawyer or a doctor or surgeon, and you're saying like a lawyer, right? oh yeah, $650 an hour, and it takes 10 hours to do a detector, right? You work it out. So it's not really feasible to go right in and completely make a new detector out of one of the old ones. There's a lot of stuff you can do, but it still takes hours and hours to do it. You can't just do it in 30 minutes, and bang, it's done. You can't do that. If you do that, you're going to have trouble. It's slow process. So, basically, you're not going to get rich doing it because it just takes so many hours, and components are not cheap. Time's not cheap. So it's just the way it is. You could easily, like on a really good upgrade, you kiss the whole day goodbye for sure doing that, and then doing the parts. It's just time consuming doing it all properly. So yeah, I've never really timed myself, but sometimes I do sit there for a damn long time, especially now if I do things a little bit differently. And I'm always on the cusp of doing something really, really good that I've got to prove out first. I'd love to give everyone something that was, well, I'd love to give everybody something that was like 6,000 performance, but also did big deep gold and adjustable. But to do that with one of these, it would take us a heap of time. It can be done. Whatever's. There's no magic to it, right? There's no magic. It's just refinement, right? There's no magic in all these, new designs. He's got different pulse timings. You know, probably a little bit of signal processing. You know, we call it number manipulation. Try and get rid of the noise if you can. It's just basically the noise of a particular numerical value or range of them, and you just flick them out and ignore those, and just infill with front and back of what was already there. You can. That's a basic way of putting it, but we'll just call it averaging, right? Flick off the sharp peaks that aren't part of a progressive curve, and that's a noise blip, go away. That's a noise blip, go away. Smooth it. So you can do all that in the digital realm, but sometimes that's got knobs on it as well. Yeah. Anyway, enough waffle. So anyway, I think you get the gist of that. Probably said too much as usual. Probably went on for too long, but you can always tune out, turn it off, hit the stop button, or watch it later. Break it up into segments. Anyway, catches.